If you've been following Boston's election stories, you know this month has been a milestone for the advancement of women. That's also the goal of a $1.7 million grant program announced last month by the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation in conjunction with the bank's 200th anniversary. To tell us about the initiative are the bank's Executive Vice President and Head of Human Resources and Charitable Giving, Nancy Steger, and from one of the nonprofit grant recipients, the Chica Project, the Interim Executive Director, Erika Rodriguez. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you.
I want to start with Nancy. 1.7 million. I know there are many grants, but it sounds like this is a pretty ambitious initiative here, isn't it?
Well, for the last 6 years, we've been doing targeted giving. We've been fortunate to grow Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation based on the strength of Eastern Bank. Eastern Bank is the only donor to the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation. And we've grown our charitable foundation to over $110 million. And that allows us a lot of money to be able to give out to various charitable endeavors throughout Greater Boston and across the rest of the Eastern Bank footprint. So we're thrilled to be able to do that. And our objective is to give many smaller grants rather than a few large grants, because we really are part of the grassroots of all of our communities. And but we also want to make sure that we have appropriate focus in some of that giving. And so each year, for the last 5 or 6 years, we have picked a theme. And this year's theme for the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation is Advancing Women and Girls. And Chika Project's a great example of that. And of course, you were a recipient this year of our targeted giving. We gave 170 different targeted grants, and we announced 1.7 million, but I'm really happy to tell you that the total giving thematically around advancing women and girls is over 2 million now as we stand. So, and we've got a little bit left of the year. So we're delighted to be able to do that because we see the need. We chose this because our first depositor, we're 200 years old this year, and our first depositor, Rebecca Sutton, was a recently widowed woman who didn't have a bank account. And in those days, many of the banks that existed didn't allow women to have bank accounts, which is kind of crazy now, but that is true what happened in 1818. And
Erika, you got involved in the Chica Project as a mentor. What was that like for you?
It was an awesome experience. I was there in 2012, close to when the organization was started in 2011. And I was able to give back to my community, mainly to the young women that were there, mentoring them, telling them about my experience in high school and college. So it was a great opportunity.
Well, one of the things that you drew on was your experience growing up in Boston, but in the MEDCO program, later attending school in the suburbs, a very different world. So how did you draw on that to help the young women that you worked with?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate to be part of different organizations as a young person that focus on social justice and leadership development. Very similar to Chica Project. So at a very young age, I was learning, about my culture, my identity as a young woman of color. And in having these conversations, I was able to navigate Concord Carlisle. And so a lot of the mentoring that we do at Chica Project is having those difficult conversations about how are you yourself when you go to an institution that doesn't really look like you.
Nancy, there's an incredible variety of groups that you're working with, helping women overcome barriers. It could be a homeless organization, or it could be an educational. Or tell us about some of the recipients.
well, we wanted to make sure that out of the 170 grants that we did cover a number of different types of organizations, as you said, around housing, around working to help victims of sex trafficking, victims of domestic violence, and a whole host of boys and girls clubs. It just a great number because they're doing wonderful grassroots work on the ground. They're helping people, just as you've described with the Chica Project, which is a wonderful example of it. The more we can do locally, neighbor to neighbor, the more we're going to have success.
Erika, you're working with younger women, and they're growing up with images of women in mass media, and you're bringing in something different to them. Explain why that's so important.
So Chica Project really has different components. So we help our young women have the skills, the the confidence and the network to be able to thrive both professionally and personally. So we're not only teaching our young women about 21st century skills or professional development, but we're also having, again, conversations about culture identity. We're having conversations about confidence. How are you yourself, and how can you bring yourself to places that don't really look like you?
And how to be authentic.
And how to be authentic, exactly.
And, Nancy, and these are one-on-one conversations. This is not something that flies past you in a classroom. Explain the difference that makes.
Well, I think when you have a mentor who is someone that you can look up to, who's
Right.
been there, done that,
Yeah.
who looks like you and has similar experiences, it makes what they're saying more valuable than a teacher in a classroom or another adult, a parent or so, that the young person believes that their experience is so different from their own. So, places like Boys and Girls Club, the Chica
Yes.
Project, others like that provide
Absolutely.
someone who is older and has had more life experience, but is still in the frame of what's familiar to the younger person. And so it can have definitely a lot more impact.
Absolutely.
And that's what I mean by neighbor to neighbor. If it's student to student, as you did early in your life, and are doing now with this, the more we can do that, the more we can let people know what is similar and help them to understand what's different in a different context so that they can deal with it
Right.
easier.
Exactly.
And Erika, I know you recently had a fundraiser.
Yes, we did.
Tell us about that.
So we had our Power of One annual fundraiser in April. Super successful. Ayanna Presley was there as one of our keynote speakers. We had 3 of our young women give testimonies about how they've grown in their leadership. And we have a big network at Chica Project, so we had over 200 guests there.
And if there's some young women watching, they want to either get help or get
Absolutely.
involved, what's
Yes.
the best thing for them to do?
So right now we are definitely recruiting. We have different programs. We have one program where it's the Empowerment Institute. That happens in our 3 schools: Lawrence High School in Lawrence, KIPP Academy in Lynn, and Cathedral High School in Boston. So if they go to those schools, they could be part of our Empowerment Institute program. However, we also have our community-based program called Queens Rise, and that happens the 3rd Sunday of every other month. They could go on our website and they could send in an application. Our community-based program is open to all girls in Massachusetts from grades 9th to 12th. So
And you're
they're all
also-
welcomed.
And you're also on Facebook. And Nancy, if there's any way that people can get some information about this from Eastern too?
Sure. If you want to find out more about Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation, go to www.easternbank.com/foundation, and you'll see all of our information there.
Thank you both, Nancy Steger and Erika Rodriguez.